Greetings and welcome to another podcast from the Heart of the Witch's Path channel. I'm your co-host Helen.
And I'm Cathy.
And we're here to bring you episode 207 of our podcast.
Sorry, that was me. Oops.
So, I hope everybody's doing well. It is another warm
day in Michigan.
That's right. I like how we totally do all the weather updates for everyone.
It's freaking hot.
Yeah. I hope y'all don't get, offended or whatever, but we share our weather here.
Because it's hot, and it's been hot, and it's going to be hot.
Yeah, for at least another month. So here we are, like I said, with episode 207, and this episode is all about how to write a ritual.
Yeah, we decided on this topic because, well, it happens to be pertinent at the moment.
Yes.
We have been tasked to do a public ritual at Lansing Pagan Pride Day, which is in the end of August. Mm-hmm. And so the topic this year is spiritual transformation. Mm-hmm. And we are going to do a public ritual for spiritual transformation at Lansing Pagan Pride Day this year.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Right. And we've all been super busy, so it's been hard to get together to talk about it and to get stuff down on paper and everything. But, well, we're coming down to the wire. We got to have it written by the end of the weekend. So it's Friday night. Let's get going.
Let's do it.
Now, we did get started earlier, but we need to get it finalized.
Right. Yeah. It's the finalization. I mean, we've got good ideas, and it's just a matter of getting it down and getting it to them. So no big deal.
We need the rhymey witch. Where's Joy?
Yeah. Because I was going to tell you, I was working on an evocation earlier today, and I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not a rhymey witch.
Joy totally is. And I love the rhymey witch. There's power in the rhyme.
Right.
And where's the rhymey witch?
So we're kind of getting into it a little bit more.
Okay, let's go back to topic. Okay, so we're doing a podcast on how to write a ritual.
Right.
Not a spell, although some of the steps are the same. This is an actual ritual. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a public ritual or a personal ritual or whatever. This is a ritual where you cast a circle and you do a complete ritual.
Right. But before that,
we have, of course, as we always do, the Correspondence of the Week.
We chose a correspondence for this week. We chose the correspondence for this week based on the work that we're doing for this ritual.
Which, again, is transformation.
Right. So, in doing some research about what herbs are good for transformation, we came across myrrh,
which is technically a resin, but
right.
Still,
right. So let's talk about the correspondences of myrrh, and then let's share with everybody why we chose this. The reason.
The transformation or the myrrh?
No, the myrrh.
Okay.
So, what do you got?
I have that it is good for spiritual growth and focus. It is used to deepen meditation and aid in contemplation. And it increases the powers of other herbs when they are used in conjunction.
And according to my Book of Light Sources...
Obi-Wan.
Right. Myrrh is, again, used for spirituality, but it's also used for healing and protection and for exorcism, which I thought was kind of interesting. And, of course, transformation, what we're looking for.
Right.
Now, myrrh is associated with the element of water, and it's also associated with the moon.
Yeah, I had that on my list.
And goddesses
Isis.
That are associated. Isis, Demeter, Hecate, and Rhea.
Rhea, who is very important to us personally because she is the patron goddess of our coven.
Correct. And so when we saw that, the transformation was one good reason, but Rhea was another because we're going to ask Rhea to help us with this ritual.
Right.
So what's the reason that we needed an herb for transformation?
Well, okay, that's later part in the ritual. Do we want to get into that?
Well, we didn't really. No.
Okay.
I don't care.
Okay, so we were trying to come up with something that all of our participants could have to take away. And so we came up with this idea that I saw on Pinterest, because Pinterest is definitely...
has good ideas.
Yeah, definitely a resource, where you take tea light candles and you melt the wax a little, either in a double boiler in your oven or whatever. And you sprinkle herbs on top of it so that when you burn the candle, the energy and the herbs get released. So we were looking up herbs that we could use for this, and of course myrrh was a perfect choice.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we're going to try this little craft so that our participants have something for a takeaway. So if any of you out there have tried this method...
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let us know.
We haven't
tried it yet, although I think we might want to do a trial run prior to the ritual.
Well... I have tea lights. We're going to try it as soon as we're done recording this podcast.
Oh, fine.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So that's why we were looking for an herb. I just wanted to cover that in case we forgot about it when we, when we got into the meat of it. So that is that myrrh is our...
Oh God, you got to get me. Let me pull it up again. Here.
Why did you... Oh, because... Correspondence of the week. I'm sorry, folks. Our sound engineer
I don't think
forgot
so,
what she was.
Forgot what she was. Switch over to my browser.
Oh, that's right. Right. Okay. So that's what. Okay. All right. We have it resolved. So anyhow, so let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Sure.
Of this.
Okay. So we
podcast.
have this ritual that we need to perform. Okay.
Right. So we're gonna try to cover the these steps, but we're not gonna actually like do a 1, 2, 3.
Right.
We're just gonna kind of have a conversation.
Yeah, because some things kind of blur into other things, and some things you have to come back to later,
and some things are more important, and we might talk about it a little bit longer.
Right.
Those kinds of things.
But to start out with, you have a need. You have some reason that you need to do this ritual. Mm-hmm. In our case, we need to do a public ritual for spiritual transformation to perform it at Lansing Pagan Pride Day 2016, in case you're listening to this in the future.
So Cathy, in listing all that out, really brought up something that was kind of cooking in the back of my head. Okay, so you need your need, or you need a need, or whatever.
You have a need.
You have a need. So, but you want to define it.
Right.
And so that need for this ritual that we're working on, it's a very specific, it's very defined. And so you want, do yourself a favor and have that established.
Yeah, write down a sentence or two of the reason that you're coming up with this.
Right.
And that's like a preliminary reason.
Right. I mean, because you could be writing an Ostara ritual.
Right.
You could be
hand fasting.
Right. You could be writing a ritual to help someone. This always sticks out in my mind because we learned about we did some hardcore looking at how to write a ritual when we were studying with the Dianics for a year and a day. And one thing that we had to do was we had to sit down and design a ritual for someone who was having trouble conceiving, and, what would you do to help that person ritualistically?
Right. So in that case, the need would be to help someone be able to conceive and carry a child.
Right. And so that always sticks in my mind when I think about ritual writing, because that's what we did.
Right.
So the need can come from either, your head and knowing I need to do this, or Cathy's involved with the MMPC, which is the entity.
Michigan Pagan Council does the Lansing Pagan Pride.
Right. And so that's where she learned of the need. Or if you have someone that comes to you for help, with a magical working for something that you're writing a ritual for, then that's where your need is derived from.
Right, like your friend who has the entity in his house that needs to get rid of it, and you tried a couple spells, maybe a ritual should be required.
Right.
So,
exactly.
But it could be any kind of need, and it could be something that's simple and maybe could be done with a spell, but you want to make it more special.
Right,
or you want to get more in depth.
Right. So that's where the need comes in. So then you want to... How we were taught was you sit down and you do a brainstorm.
Right. And brainstorm can cover a lot of different things. And if you don't have somebody to bounce ideas off of, you can do meditation or divination.
Right.
Or, you can talk to the guy down the street and go, hey, when you think about transformation, what do you think about?
Mm-hmm.
What
spiritual
comes to mind?
transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And really, this is like the biggest chunk of this process.
Yeah, it's usually the most time consuming because you have to think, well, what do you want to, what you need to do, how do you want to do it?
Right.
Do you want to do an outside ritual? Do you want it to be inside? Is this one that's for you by yourself? Is this for your coven? Is this for you and the person who's trying to have a baby? Mm-hmm. Or is this a public ritual in a public venue where you're going to have people running around who may not be involved in the ritual?
Right. Right. So that's the point where you you define what you want the ritual to be. Do you want divination to be a part of the ritual? Do you want someone to invoke a goddess or god to act as an oracle? That those kinds of things.
Right.
And what makes you think of this need,
right? The last time our coven got together, we went, hey, when you think about transformation, what comes to mind? And we went, oh god, no, I can't remember any of them.
Oh, I had it written down.
Butterfly, dragonfly, and I can't remember. Rebirth. There was a couple of gods and goddesses that were mentioned. Mm-hmm. There was, and we wrote them down. We've got them.
Right. We just don't.
It's been a long day. I've worked hard.
Right. Right. So the brainstorming is the big chunk of what you're gonna do for this ritual. So from that brainstorm, you're going to come up with, a statement of purpose of some kind. So, this ritual is going to be for this. Or this is going to be a Sabbath ritual. This is going to be a full moon ritual.
This ritual is to help my friend Carolyn conceive and carry a child to term.
Right.
This ritual is to help others in the pagan community achieve some kind of spiritual transformation.
Exactly. Right. So that's what's going to come out of your brainstorming is you're going to determine that statement of purpose.
And you want to stick to that statement. So you want to make sure that you include everything that you're going for here. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not to say that you should make it so broad that you lose focus.
Right. And that you pigeonhole your ritual.
Well, yeah, you don't want to pigeonhole it either.
Right.
So you, but you want to make sure that you cover everything that it is you want to cover without going, wild.
Right. So from that, sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. It's okay.
Look, it's sound. I need to turn my sound off after I text one of my kids.
So then you're part of that brainstorming also, like we talked about, is you're going to define like the method or the type of ritual that it's going to be. Is it going to be personal? Is it going to be something for just yourself? Is it a group? Is it your coven? Is it a public ritual?
Is there going to be meditation? Is there going to be a craft? Is there going to be dancing or chanting? Mm-hmm. What is it? How are you going to accomplish your statement of purpose?
Right, because you can run into some issues. Like one thing that we have to be cognizant of in writing this ritual is that there is a potential for there to be a large group of people. Therefore, we can't do things that are too specific to one person.
Right.
Because that will take forever.
Right, exactly.
So how do we facilitate a spiritual transformation? That's a pretty big spectrum to cover. And so you want to make sure that you're aware of your potential participants.
Right. And especially in this venue that we're doing this, because this is at a park in Holt, I think.
Right. So it's outdoors.
So it's outdoor, and it's a public park. So while there is like a corner of the park that we're going to use to do the ritual, there's still other people attending the Pagan Pride Day. Plus there's people who are not pagan who are using the park.
Right.
So we have to be aware of spiritual energies and keeping it contained and making sure nobody walks through the ritual area who doesn't belong there.
Maintaining sacred space.
That too. But on the other hand, you want to make sure, even if you're doing it a private ritual, you want to make sure that you're going to do it at a time where you're not going to be interrupted, where your mom's not going to walk into your bedroom when you're in the middle of lighting a huge candle and starting a fire in your bedroom,
right?
If you're a teenager,
right?
Or your kids aren't going to run through and mom, the kitchen's on fire.
Right.
You have to be cognizant of that type of thing too,
right? So yeah, definitely think about your method, think about the type of ritual, and plan accordingly. Another thing that you'll end up brainstorming about is what kinds of basically correspondences.
Right. In our instance, we're going to do the candles with the herbs and that, and that. But there's other things that you can use as well, like stones.
Right. Yeah. Like if your intent for the ritual is to take away something, then you need to have all of those things gathered. Like if you're doing a ritual around a spell, then you need to have that researched out and what you're going to do and what items you need.
Yeah, so that's something else to keep in mind. Yes, you're doing this ritual, but are you going to do a spell as part of this ritual too?
Right, exactly. So, and another thing to consider is what gods and goddesses that you may or may not work with.
Right, and it doesn't have to be somebody that you work with on a daily basis, although, like in the instance of our ritual that we're creating here, Rhea is the patron goddess of our coven, so calling her for this is like a no-brainer.
Right, because she's a transformative goddess. She's an earth goddess.
Right.
So things are just kind of falling really nicely into place for us to do this ritual. Which is what
happens when you do your research.
Right, exactly.
When you do the brainstorming part of it really well, then everything just kind of falls into place.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, knowing those correspondences, and having them on hand, having yourself prepared in time so that you can have that ready.
Right.
Another thing that you'll want to look at is what kind of an altar setup.
Yeah, because there's all kinds of options. I mean, you could do, for instance, in our Samhain ritual, we have the main altar, but then we also have a side altar that's our ancestor altar.
And that's where we put photos or items that belong to our honored dead.
Right.
And so we always set that up, and we have different levels. We use boxes and things like that to create levels to make it pretty so it's not a flat surface.
Cake stands.
And cake stands, and we cover things with fabric to have that theme and things like that. And so, what kind of an altar setup do you need if you're going to do a ritual to Pan and you're calling Pan forth? You're probably not going to want a statue of Freya.
Right.
On your altar.
Although if you're calling Pan and Freya at the same time, not that I know why you would, but if you did.
Right.
You'd want to, you have to keep those things in mind. If you're doing an Egyptian themed altar, you don't want, Roman or Greek goddesses statuary on the altar.
Right.
And sometimes you can do an altar on the ground, you can do it on a stone, you can have a table that you put outside or a kitchen table. So you really have to keep that in mind. Is it a small altar? Is that going to be big enough? Because when we do our ritual, we're going to have these candles on the altar. We need to have a space big enough to hold all of these candles.
Right.
As well as our normal altar tools.
Exactly. Right. And then, you get into a specialty ritual, like we keep coming back to this fictional ritual for Caroline. To get to conceive.
Conceive and carry.
When we did this exercise, we conceived of this getting some glass bowls.
Right.
And the bigger glass bowl had water in it, and the inner bowl we took a little baby and put in there.
And we had red cloth to do the womb.
Right, right. So, those types of things, that's what's going to come out of your brainstorming are specifics like that.
Right.
And then you'll want that on your altar. So that's some things that's going to come out of the brainstorming.
Yeah, so to get back to you probably wouldn't, if you were doing a ritual for Caroline, you probably wouldn't also have, I don't know, Hecate or the Morrigan also on the altar because they're death goddesses.
Right.
And it's probably a good idea to do something like Bast, who is a goddess of childbirth.
Right.
So that plays back to the correspondences.
Exactly, right.
But again, if you do your research, it all falls into place.
Exactly, right. So once that big brainstorming session is over, then comes the point where you write the ritual.
Yeah, and I have to admit that we tend to plagiarize quite heavily.
Well, we did.
Well,
but
what we do is we go out and find something, and then we change it to be what we need specifically. Mm-hmm. So, but still, sometimes there are large chunks that are like, oh, this is awesome. Let's just use this. Mm-hmm. And, we're not publishing anything, so it's fine. It's stuff we find on the internet. We don't break into somebody's house and look at their book of shadows.
Right. But, I mean, there's lots of things in books, too, that you could take bits and pieces from. Absolutely. And stuff like that. So, use whatever you have. Now, some people, they want to go ahead and write everything from the top of their head.
Right,
and that's
have a
fine.
Piece of paper to read off of.
Right, and that's fine. That's fine. Whatever.
God
and
knows
some
we
people,
do it plenty.
Some people have that idea loose in their head and do it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they don't use a piece of paper. They call the quarters from the heart. They use memory based on what they know of the correspondences to call things.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine, too. There's been plenty of times where we went, we forgot the evocations. Okay, let's just wing it.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's okay, too. Whatever works for you. We're just kind of giving you some guidelines.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, too, that there's no right or wrong method.
Right.
I mean, we're telling you how we normally do things, but there are people out there who have the idea that they can only do a ritual if someone else has written it down in the book, and so they copy it word for word, and that's not wrong.
No. Mm-mm.
That's not wrong.
Whatever, if it like so many things with witchcraft, it's what feels right to you.
What works for you.
Right.
And if it doesn't work for you, God, don't do it.
Right. Right. And you know what? If you want to try something from a book, to try it and see what happens if you're a newbie, then by all means.
We certainly did.
That's right. That's what they're out there for, is to give you examples.
Right.
And then what you do is you tweak it.
Right.
You tweak it for what works for you.
Right. And the more that you do this and the more that you practice, the more you'll know how to tweak it. And
exactly.
the more you'll be able to channel your higher self and go, oh, I could do this and I can do this and I can do this. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Right. So for us, we like to have things written down.
Yeah.
So
because some of us are, our memory's not that great.
So after your big brainstorming session, you want to write this out. You at least want a rough guideline.
Yeah, a couple of words even. Just so that you have it down. This is what you want to make sure that you don't forget.
Even someone who's winging it, they still have like a step. They have steps at the very least that they're following. Things like, the evocation for any deities, the quarter calls. If you, we have a standard quarter call for our coven that we use all the time. And so, but if you were doing a ritual for a specific purpose, like Caroline conceiving, then you might want to adjust your quarter calls for that purpose.
Yeah, you might want to call upon, when you call for a quarter, you call upon an element, but you also call upon aspects of that element, and you can tailor that for the purpose of your ritual. Mm-hmm. So you would tailor water for holding the child and keeping it safe, and
Right.
and earth for keeping it grounded, and air for breathing life into it, and
Exactly.
and fire for giving it soul.
Right.
You could
Giving it
tailor
life.
it specifically for what your purpose is.
Right. So and for us, it works better for us to have that written down.
Right.
To have it,
Yeah, especially because we have some people who have been practicing for, God, can you believe we've been practicing together for 20 years?
Yeah, isn't that
it's
insane?
crazy. And some people who have sort of been practicing, maybe 5 or 10 years, but not seriously about it, so they would not be able to do the quarter calls off the top of their head.
Right. Like you and I, we have done quarter calls off the cuff.
We have. Yes.
But some people, especially if you're new, you're not comfortable with that.
And some people have social anxiety, and they're like, oh my God, I cannot remember a single correspondence item for this.
Right. And so it's helpful to have that.
Right.
It's helpful. We've found that it's helpful.
Yes.
So get it all written down. Kathy, being the Virgo she is, she's got formatting, so there's
so
colors.
we have a specific ritual template that we use for all of our rituals with color formatting and indentation.
Yeah, but it's helpful because,
we can look at it and go, okay, this is this and this is this,
Right.
and we know this one everybody says, and this
Right.
one
If it's
the ritual
something-
leader says, and
Right. If it's something that needs to be said out loud, then it's in bold print. If it's not, if it's action or whatever,
Right.
it's in regular print.
And there's a list of items that we need for the ritual at the top of it, so that we can get everything ready ahead of time.
Exactly. Right. So
So it's a really good idea to have a template like that, and there are plenty out there in books.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
in that way too, you can, once you have something written, if you do something like that, then you can keep that in your book of shadows.
Right.
And that's something that you can go and reference and do again. Say Sharon comes to you 2 months after you do a ritual for Caroline to conceive, and she would like you to do the ritual for her.
Right.
Then you've got it there, and it's in your toolbox, and it's ready to go.
Maybe Mary comes to you a month later and says, I don't want to get pregnant. Can you help me out here? So you can use that template and go, okay, let's not use these people. Let's come over here and use these people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
it's good to keep a record of everything that you do, not only because you have a record of everything you do, but
Right.
to be able to refer back to it.
Exactly. Right. So once you've got it all written down, you probably want to...
Yeah, you want to review what you've written down to make sure that you've covered your statement of purpose. And I tell you what, there is nothing wrong with stating your statement of purpose in your ritual. We certainly do it for all of our Sabbath rituals. We have a paragraph where we state what it is we're doing.
Exactly. Right. So, and then the last thing that you might want to do...
And you might not want to. It depends on the ritual that you're doing, especially if you're doing a personal ritual. We're going to, because it's a public ritual.
Mm-hmm. You might want to have a practice run.
Right.
At least go through things, like if you're using big props, which we're planning a big prop for this ritual.
We'll see if it pans out. Because I'm concerned, we talked about not having something that only one person can do at a time. And okay, our idea is to do a drop cloth labyrinth, and that's difficult to have more than one person doing it at once. But I did have an idea about that, how to get around that. So we could talk about that when we get down to planning the actual drop
labyrinth.
cloth.
So if we do this, then maybe we'll do a video.
Oh, yeah.
To kind of show how it works or whatever.
Absolutely.
I hope it works out.
We'll
see what happens.
Me too. It's a great idea. We've talked for years about making a drop cloth labyrinth, and we've just never done it. So hopefully we can do it, and we will most certainly do a video if we can, because we could use it for a lot of our Sabbath rituals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. How's our time looking?
We're right there.
Okay.
So we timing is good. It's time to stop, as a matter of fact. So nice segue into wrapping things up.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that's going to do it for us for now. These are the things that we take into consideration. And again, let's make sure that we state that if something different works for you, then by all means, go for it.
Yeah, and tell us about it, because
Yeah.
while we do stuff a specific way, that doesn't mean that we can't grow and adapt
And learn.
And I am all for trying something and see if it works, and if it works, incorporate it. If it doesn't, then not everything works for everybody.
Right, exactly. Knowledge is power.
G.I. Joe. Okay.
All right, so that's going to do it for us this time. Thanks for tuning in. And again, let us know if there's any topic that you'd like for us to cover. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Heart of the Witch's Path YouTube channel.
If you've learned something, please like the podcast.
Definitely. So thanks for walking the path for a little while with us. And until next time, blessed be.